In this one, we're just going to make our pages look just a little bit better. Right now, they don't look great, so we're going to do a little bit of template inheritance as well as adding in Bootstrap. We cover this a lot more in a lot of our other projects, so we're not really going to dwell on it too much right now, especially because Bootstrap 4 is not that far away. It's probably going to be coming out within the next few months, but in the meantime, Bootstrap 3 is still very, very valuable, which is what we're going to be using. So what I mean by changing this, I mean how this looks. It's just going to render a little bit differently, so it's just a little bit cleaner as to how our site looks. That's all. So let's go ahead and go into getbootstrap.com, and you're going to want to click on Getting Started. That's going to bring you to this page right here. We're just going to be grabbing the Bootstrap CDN. I'm going to grab this right here. That is just the CSS. I don't really need the other things at this point. And I'm going to go into my templates. So the first one I'm going to jump into is home.html. And I'm going to actually make this a full-on HTML template. That is a full-on HTML file by doing doctype HTML and then opening up an HTML tag and then closing an HTML tag and then opening up a body tag around what we've already written and then closing off a body tag and then finally opening up a head tag and then closing off a head tag. This is some basic HTML stuff, so hopefully you guys already know how to do this. If you don't, it's fairly straightforward as we've seen. So this is the style sheet that we're going to be working off for the rest of our project. And in here, I'm just going to put a title tag and I'll just say cur.co. Shorten that URL. Close off that title. And there we go. Okay, so now we've got a little bit better styling. If I save it and refresh on my page, what I'll see is it's now showing it just slightly better. It's not a lot better, but it's definitely slightly better. The first thing that I'll do is I'm going to get rid of these inline style sheets and instead use Bootstrap classes. And the first one is going to be, I'll just say text center. And then I'll also have to put a class inside of it as column small 12. So that's a column that this is basically saying align the text in the center, and then this is going to take the full width of its containing element. So we'll do div class equals to container, and then div class equals to row. And again, if you want to know more about this, definitely check out some of our other Try Django projects where we talk more about Bootstrap. And we do plan on doing a Bootstrap course, entire Bootstrap course when the new one comes out on joincfe.com/projects. So now that we've got this, we've got a container class row and text center column small 12. I refresh in here. It's now a little bit better and it's responsive to the size of the browser. The other one wasn't as responsive. This is much, much better. So our form class, we're not really going to change that, but I will add our input. I'll say class equals to, and I'll set a actual class here, and I'll do btn and btn, let's say primary, and that's button classes, and there we go. So now I have the ability to do it. I do want to change the way that is rendered. I should probably just say submit button and a placeholder. We'll do that in a moment. But anyway, so now we've got this template file, right? And if I actually go in here and submit something, it still goes back to my old stuff. This is because we have different HTML for each one of these, right? So what I want to do now is instead of working off of this inside of my templates, I'm going to make a new file in here. This is the external templates, and I'm going to call this base.html. And I'm going to copy everything from home.html and paste it inside of base.html. I'm going to save base.html and get rid of the container here. And inside of the body, I'm just going to put the curly bracket parentheses block content. And then I will go right below that and do in block content. Sometimes you'll see it just as in block, but we'll leave it as block content and in block content. So this is doing template inheritance. So these blocks, I can actually replace them if I do inheritance. So back on home.html, well, actually, before we do home.html, let's go to success.html. And we'll go on top here and we'll say extends base.html. So when it's saying extends base.html, that means that base.html is its parent element, and I can replace things in it, such as block content and in block content. I can totally do that, and that is going to replace this area right here, at least on the success page. I'm going to do this same idea here on already exists, paste that in here, and say exists already. Nothing else is really different. So we save that, and we can go ahead and shorten this blog again, and notice that the styling does look a little bit better, and it's going off of this base.html. So if you look up here, it says shorten that URL. I can inspect the element here and actually see all of the things that are coming through for the CSS and just generally what we're doing. Now I can do another one, and that is block title. And we can say in block. Oop, let's try that again. Percent in block title. And of course, when I say block title, I mean the page title. So going back into the base, this is the page title here. I'm going to put it around just the cur.url or cur co, just like that. So this is the block title. Or sorry, we didn't want it there. We want to keep cur. We want to put it here. So block title is going to go here in block. Oops, that should be block again. Title, and there we go. So now we can dynamically change that inside of any given thing. So for us, we're going to just say object.get short URL, and that's going to take over that block title. So if I refresh in here, it now shows it, or we could just do block.get shortcode itself, and then there it is. So that's kind of one way to work with that. You can also do super or block.super to have the original stuff in there as well. So if I wanted to have what was originally inside of that actual block, I just call block.super. When I say inside originally, I mean what's inside of these tags. So we save that and refresh, and notice it's doing that just a little bit more dynamic, which is really cool. So already exists. I'm going to do the exact same thing with success, and we'll just change this to success. Save that. And now what I want to do is change the home.html to the exact same stuff. So it's really simple. We just get rid of this and do extends base.html, and we'll do block content, and then down here just in block content. Save that, refresh on the home page, and it's back to what it was. Cool. So that is implementing Bootstrap. Really simple, very straightforward. We got to fill out that thing. We do that. If we did something incorrect, oops, not com, but just like this, not valid because of no.com, right? So we now have that. I will get rid of that validation. I'm going to do two things right now, and that is going into my forms and get rid of the validate.com, first of all. And the label, we'll just say label being just URL, or rather, I don't even want a label. Instead, I want a placeholder there. So to do that, we're going to jump back into the form itself. I'm going to just separate these lines a little bit. And I'm going to write a new widget. So widget as in how it should render, and that's forms.textInput. And we want to just add some stuff inside of that, and that's attributes equals to and placeholder. And this is what we want to call it. So whatever placeholder we want inside of the field itself. So we'll just say short or long URL, because that's really what it is. But we can also add in another attribute in here, which gives it some more Bootstrap level stuff, and that is a CSS class. So we just add class, and this is going to be form-control. So we save that, go back into Chrome, refresh. Whoa. So we've got our placeholder in there, and now the form goes really wide. Remember how I said that the div, if you go back here, this takes up the entire width of the containing element it's in. So our form, we can actually put in div class equals to column small 4, and then we'll offset it by 4 as well. So it's column small offset 4. And then underneath the form, we close off that div, save it, tab this in a little bit, and I'll refresh, and there we go. Now we've got our long URL. Looks a little bit better. It's styled better. I hit shorten. It now brings me into that shortened stuff. The new in exists, we might want to add a class to that, and we'll just do btn and btn default, and we'll do that same thing on success. All right, so now if I refresh in here, I can see that I can do this, and I can click on new, and it brings me back to that home page. That's not the last thing I want to do. The actual last thing I want to do is go back into Bootstrap and go to examples and scroll down to our custom components here. We want to get this cover one. So I'm going to click on this, and I want to go to view and developer and view source. So I actually want to view the page source here. The main thing is I want it to look more like this to look more like this. And I'm going to do that by, first of all, copying this cover.css. So we can just copy that whole link first and bring it back into our base, right? Because that's where our other CSS is. And now we need the actual URL for this. So I'm going to copy link address and replace this with that. So we save it and we go back in here. That page is already starting to look better because it's got that background now, the same background as this. But I want to bring it down in there. And to do this, I see that it's in site wrapper inner, and so on. So I'm going to actually copy from in here, from div to div. I'm going to copy that and put it into my base. And then instead of having it with all this stuff, so this right here, I'm going to get rid of the masthead, this cover part. And instead here, I'll put cur URL, right? Actually, the cover container is probably where we want the block content, is right in here. Or perhaps, actually, it's probably better inside here. Paste that. So now we can get rid of this div here. This one we don't need. This is just kind of how we want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, save it, and let's take a look at what renders. We refresh, and now it's off to the side a little bit, and that's because of how we actually did that page. So if we go back into the home and just change this to being column small 4 and get rid of that one, save that, refresh, it should bring everything back. Get rid of that text center. And that's not working, so let's paste in what I just cut, which is all of this stuff. So cover heading, just making some slight changes here. We're going to change that to being the title. Let's cut this, paste that there, and then the rest of it should be fine now. If I refresh, we want it to be in here. So I'm going to put inside of this lead, that's where I'm going to put the form itself, still with that div class of small, 4. Put that in there. And then this other part, let's get rid of that. And I'll finally get rid of this last thing. Save that, refresh. And it's off to the side still, which is okay. I'm going to make it column small 6 instead now, and then do column small offset 3. Save that, refresh, and now it's looking a little bit better. Like shortening the URL is now sort of realistic. If I do it, it now brings me back to this. Notice it's off a little bit, just slightly off. That's because of how we set it up. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, and also get rid of that. Save those, refresh. Now it's in the middle, and this is looking a little bit better. One more thing that I might want to do is with these URLs, I might want to have just a different style there. And I'll do that by just looking at Bootstrap real quick. And we're going to jump into the components. I'm going to do a look for wells. So we're going to actually put it inside of a well. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and just put a div class being to well on success and already exists. Save that. Let's go back in, refresh, and it puts that whole thing into a well, which is not necessarily what we want. I just wanted the 2 links in there maybe, but I'm just going to leave it without that. And then our actual link itself, I'm going to add a button class to that as well. And we're going to say this is button primary. And I'll just do btn. Actually, we'll do btn link and button primary. That's the exist. We are doing it in the success one. So let's add this same class into already exists, save it, refresh, and there. Now we have a little bit better of our link here, at least for that. So this is now looking better as far as our URL shortening service is concerned. It's not perfect. It's definitely along the lines of something that we may actually want to build. We still have a few more things that we want to do, but that's now integrating Bootstrap. If you have any questions on what we did here, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.